The night my marriage almost ended started with a dress so short it made my heart stop. I remember standing in the hallway of our small house in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, holding a half-finished cup of coffee while the rain tapped softly against the windows. My wife, Rachel, walked out of the bedroom wearing a black dress that clung to her like a shadow. It was shorter than anything she had ever worn before. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. And then she looked at me with a strange calmness in her eyes and said she had somewhere to go. It wasn't just the dress, it was the silence behind it. If you believe that kindness and second chances can save even the most fragile relationships, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes in love, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us how easily life can change, and how powerful forgiveness can be. My name is Aaron, and for 8 years, Rachel had been the center of my world. We met in college in Madison, Wisconsin, when she accidentally spilled a cup of lemonade on my laptop in the campus cafe. Instead of apologizing and walking away like most people would, she stayed, bought me a new keyboard, and spent 3 hours talking with me about everything from music to childhood dreams. That day turned into dinner, dinner turned into months of dating, and eventually we built a life together. But life doesn't stay simple forever. 3 months before that rainy evening, my younger brother Lucas had died in a car accident. The loss shattered something inside me. Lucas had been my best friend since childhood. After the funeral, I withdrew from everything, including Rachel. I stopped laughing, stopped talking, stopped noticing the world around me. I worked late hours, came home exhausted, and stared silently at the television, while Rachel tried to fill the quiet spaces between us. She tried so hard. She cooked dinners I barely touched. She suggested weekend trips I never agreed to. She even brought home an old guitar she remembered I loved playing in college. But grief had wrapped itself around my chest like chains, and I pushed everything away, including her. Looking back now, I realize Rachel wasn't leaving that night because of the dress. She was leaving because of the distance. As she walked past me toward the door, the scent of her perfume lingered in the air. It was the same perfume she had worn on our wedding day in Nashville, Tennessee. That memory struck me like lightning. For the first time in weeks, I really looked at her. Her hair was carefully styled, but her eyes looked tired. There was sadness hiding behind the confidence she tried to project. She wasn't angry. She looked defeated. The front door opened, letting the cold, rain-filled air rush into the hallway. My heart pounded as I watched her step outside. Something deep inside me whispered that, if I let her leave without saying anything, I might lose her forever. But grief had made me slow. By the time I stepped onto the porch, Rachel was already walking toward her car parked beneath the streetlight. The rain glistened on the pavement like shattered glass. She paused for a moment, as if waiting for me to say something. I didn't. And that moment passed. Her car engine started, headlights cutting through the darkness before disappearing down the street. The house felt unbearably quiet afterward. I walked through the living room, noticing things I had ignored for weeks. The framed photo from our honeymoon in San Diego. The blanket Rachel loved curling up in during movie nights. A small sticky note she had left on the refrigerator that morning reminding me to eat lunch. The truth hit me harder than the rain outside. Rachel had been trying to hold us together while I slowly disappeared into my grief. I sank onto the couch and buried my face in my hands. For the first time since Lucas died, I allowed myself to cry, not just for my brother, but for the marriage I might be losing. Hours passed. The rain grew heavier, drumming against the roof like a restless heartbeat. I checked my phone several times, wondering where Rachel had gone. She hadn't texted, she hadn't called. Then something strange happened. At nearly midnight, my phone vibrated. It wasn't Rachel, it was Grace, Rachel's older sister. Her message was short. "She's here." A second message followed. "You should come." I grabbed my keys without hesitation. Grace lived about 20 minutes away in a quiet neighborhood outside the city. As I drove through the rain, my mind replayed the last 3 months of silence between Rachel and me. Every missed opportunity to listen. Every moment I had chosen grief instead of connection. By the time I reached Grace's house, the storm had started to calm. The porch light illuminated, Rachel's car parked in the driveway. I felt my chest tighten as I walked up to the front door. Grace answered almost immediately, as if she had been waiting. She didn't say much. She simply stepped aside and let me in. Rachel was sitting on the couch in the living room, still wearing that same black dress. Her makeup had smudged slightly, and her eyes looked red from crying. The confident expression she had worn earlier was gone. In that moment, she looked small, fragile. I walked slowly toward her, unsure what words could possibly fix the damage of months of silence. The room smelled faintly of tea and lavender candles. Outside, thunder rumbled softly in the distance. Rachel looked up at me. The sadness in her eyes was overwhelming. She explained that earlier that evening she had planned to go out with friends from work, not because she wanted attention or excitement, but because she needed to feel alive again. She needed to feel like the woman she used to be before our home became a quiet place filled with grief and distance. But when she arrived at Grace's house first to drop something off, she broke down crying. She admitted something that pierced my heart. She said she didn't recognize the man I had become since Lucas died. She missed the Aaron who laughed too loudly at bad jokes, who sang off-key while cooking pasta, who stayed up late talking about dreams for the future. She missed her husband. Listening to her, I realized something painful. In my grief, I had been mourning my brother, but Rachel had been mourning me. That realization changed everything. I sat beside her and told her about the guilt I had been carrying since Lucas's accident. I confessed that part of me felt responsible because Lucas had been driving to visit me that night. I admitted that instead of facing the pain, I had buried it, and in doing so, I had buried our marriage with it. Rachel listened quietly. For a long time, neither of us spoke, but something began to shift in that silence. It wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden miracle, just two tired people finally seeing each other again. Before we continue, I want to ask something special from everyone watching. Write the word hope in the comments if you believe relationships can survive even the darkest moments. Your comments help these stories reach more people who might need them. Eventually, Rachel rested her head on my shoulder. It was the first time we had touched like that in weeks. The warmth of that small gesture felt like sunlight after a long winter. We stayed at Grace's house talking until nearly 3 in the morning, not just about the past, but about the future. We talked about therapy, about taking time to heal properly, about honoring Lucas's memory instead of letting grief destroy the life he would have wanted me to keep living. Most importantly, we talked about us. When the storm finally stopped and the sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn, Rachel and I stepped outside together. The wet streets reflected the pale morning light, and the air smelled clean and new. She looked at me with the same gentle expression I remembered from the day we first met. For the first time in months, I felt something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. The dress that had terrified me earlier now seemed meaningless compared to everything we had almost lost. It hadn't been about the dress at all. It had been a cry for attention, a silent request to be seen. And that night, I finally saw her. A year later, Rachel and I stood together on a quiet beach in Charleston, South Carolina, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. We had spent months in counseling, rebuilding trust, and learning how to talk openly about pain instead of hiding it. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was stronger. Sometimes love isn't about grand gestures or flawless moments. Sometimes it's simply about showing up again after everything feels broken. And sometimes the night you think your marriage is ending is actually the night it begins to